Good evening again, everyone, and welcome to this exclusive webinar. Today, we are here to speak about science and food supplements. Like I said, along this session, we'll be lucky to have the support of a wonderful team of interpreters with us. So this means you will be able to follow this session in German, French, Spanish, Hungarian, Romanian, Czech, Portuguese, Polish, or Italian. If you are on a computer, at the bottom of your Zoom application, there is a toolbar with the interpretation icon. Click and select your preferred language. You also have the option to mute the original audio, which is English. If you want to do so, tick to only hear the interpretation and mute the audio. If you're on the phone, you can tap the ellipsis icon and the language interpretation. You can choose the language you'd like to hear, and again, you have the option to mute the original audio. To do this, you must toggle the option and make sure it turns green. Once finished, don't forget to click done. And now we will begin the science webinar. So I will hand over to Rebecca Major to lead this part of the session. Thank you.
You who don't know me, my name is Rebecca Major. I am a scientist at Nu Skin, and I've worked for Nu Skin for about 15 years now. And I'm passionate about sharing the science behind different ingredients and compounds and how they can help support health and wellness. So today we are going to focus on vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients as our topic. So I want to start off by giving a little bit of background about why this is important. A recent study that came out in 2024 looked at lifespan, which is how long we live, and compared it to health span, which is how well we live, how healthy we are. And then they found that the gap between the two is widening. Now, what that means is that people may be living longer, but they're not necessarily living better. They're not necessarily living longer in better health, right? And so this is a problem because none of us really aim to live longer, but are, bedridden or in poor health. And so our goal largely is to maintain our health for as long as possible so we can live our life to its fullest. Now, we know that nutrition plays a big role in health span. It's not the only thing that plays a role. We also, being more active is important, getting enough sleep, making sure we're exercising our brains, not just our bodies. All of those are also important. But for the purposes of today's webinar, we're really going to focus on that first piece, the healthy diet, which is by definition needs to include essential vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. So that's really what we want to focus on. The goal then is through healthy diet, through getting these nutrients, we can support this health span. So I'll start with essential vitamins and minerals. They are by definition essential because our bodies need them to survive and thrive, right? We cannot survive without essential vitamins and minerals. That's kind of why they're classified as they are. Now, the vitamins and minerals have been studied for many, many decades. And when I first started researching this topic, I thought, I wonder if there's really anything new to learn here. But actually, there's a lot of recent research that's been coming out on this subject. And that tells me that we still have a lot to learn. We know a lot, we have a lot of research that's been done, but there's a lot more to learn still. So I want to highlight 4 studies in particular that have come out recently that I think are really important on this topic. So the first study looks at micronutrient deficiencies and inadequacies around the world. And this study came out and was published in the Lancet Journal in 2024. And we'll talk more about it in a minute. But essentially, they wanted to see in different countries, what is the estimated intake of all of these different essential vitamins and minerals? And what % of the population is at risk for getting inadequate amounts of them. So, like I said, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but that was the first step. So, they found, as a high level overview, they found that a lot of countries and a lot of nutrients or people are deficient in certain nutrients. The second study looked specifically at in a population that's not getting enough of these essential vitamins and minerals, can taking a multivitamin help correct that uh, inadequacy? And they found that it can. So while it's ideal that we get all of our nutrients from our diet, if we want to take a multivitamin to help support that intake, it does help. The third study looked at going beyond nutritional inadequacy. It looked specifically at long-term intake of a multivitamin and whether it can support other health benefits. And they found that over the course of 2 years, it actually does support cognitive function. And so this illustrates another important point, which is that we might not be able to see an effect in a short term, in a month or two, but over time, making sure our bodies get enough of these nutrients is very important to supporting long-term health and wellness, in this case, cognitive function. And then the last study looked at nutrients beyond vitamins and minerals. It looked specifically at carotenoids as another nutrient class that can help support health and wellness. And it showcased some of the benefits that research has discovered about the benefits of carotenoids. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that first paper, though, the one that was published in Lancet. This is the findings from that paper, and I know it looks like a lot, but I'll explain it. So they basically broke down all of the different essential vitamins and minerals, and they looked at estimated intakes in each country around the world. So for iodine, you can see here is a picture of the globe, and it's color coded based off what percent of the population was estimated to have inadequate intake. The more red and orange you see, the more people are at risk for inadequacy. So overall, about 68% of the population is estimated to not be getting enough. But then you can look specifically at each region or country. So you can see as a big picture, vitamin E is one that a lot of people are not getting enough of. Vitamin C is another one. Whereas niacin, for example, you see a lot of blue and green. That means most of the world is getting enough niacin, right? There's not a lot of people who are at risk of inadequate intake. So this was really interesting. Then we looked at this to try and inform which nutrients are most critical, which ones are we lacking in our diets in the highest frequency. From there, we can actually zoom in. Okay, specifically in Europe, where are areas of concern? Which vitamins deserve our attention? Which ones are less important? Maybe all people are getting enough of. I don't want to say less important. They are still important, but if you're getting enough in your diet, it's not as important to be concerned about, right? So folate is a big one. You can see there's a lot of yellow and red in Europe and Africa specifically. Another one's vitamin C, but vitamin E is probably the biggest, the one that has the most widespread and deserves our attention the most. On the flip side, vitamin B6 and B12 may be less of an issue. So we can use this then to determine which nutrients we really want to focus in on more. Now, that begs the question of why are we not getting enough of these nutrients? We should be getting them from our diet, but when we look at average intake of fruits and vegetables in Europe, we find that this might be one of the reasons why people aren't getting as much of these nutrients as we need. The recommendation is to be eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. So I want you to think about what you ate yesterday. Did you eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables? On average, in Europe, only about 11 or 12% of the population is hitting that goal each day. It varies a little by country. For those of you in the Netherlands, it's much higher. Same for Ireland. Whereas Hungary, uh, Slovenia, some of these other markets um, maybe struggle a little bit more. But on average, 10 to 12%, say. This is actually on par with what data I've seen in the United States. It's also about 10% hit that recommendation. And generally speaking, whenever I look at different studies around the globe, it's around that around that percent. So now this is important because fruits and vegetables are a fantastic source of vitamins and minerals, and they're also a great source of phytonutrients. So if we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, we're missing out on all of those important compounds that they provide in our diet. Now, to build on that, I also want to share this other study that was done. Now, this is US data. I couldn't find anything in specifically for Europe, but this study actually looked at when people eat fruits and vegetables, how many colors are they eating? What colors are they eating? And they found if the study found that even when people are eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, a lot of times they're not eating a lot of variety, right? Maybe they eat an apple or a banana every day, but they're not getting any of the other colors of the rainbow. Um, and that's important because different colors of fruits and vegetables provide different nutrients. And we'll revisit this in a little bit. But when we don't eat a wide range of fruits and vegetables, we're missing out again on some of the wide variety of these important compounds. Um, Actually, it's the other piece of this research found that people who eat the whole range, they eat all of the different colors, actually have better long-term health compared to those who do not. And so, this is again supporting our goal here is to support that health span piece, right? And one of the ways we can do that is by making sure we're getting a lot of fruits and vegetables in our diet to get all of those nutrients and a lot of different colors in those fruits and vegetables to make sure we're getting a nice variety of these different nutrients. Okay, so how do you know how much you should be getting of these vitamins and minerals? Right, we have our recommendation for fruit and vegetable intake, but on top of that, European Union has also set something called DRIs, so that when you look at food labels, when you look at how much of a nutrient is in a food or a product, you can actually see what percent DRI it's fulfilling. Now, 100% DRI is essentially the minimum amount of a nutrient you need to meet the needs of most of the population. Uh, but I say meet the needs loosely. It's really a lot of times it's set on the minimum amount that we need to prevent inadequacy. And so I view 100% DRI often as the minimum amount we need. Uh, Sometimes 100% is fine, right? That's all you need. There's no added benefit for getting more. But in some cases, there is research showing that higher than 100% DV may provide additional benefits. Now, on the flip side, you can get too much, right? A lot of these nutrients also have upper limits that have been established. So we don't want to exceed that upper intake level, but somewhere between 100% DRI and that upper intake, a lot of times there's added value there. So a great example of this is vitamin C. 100% DRI of vitamin C is 80 milligrams. That seems pretty reasonable until you start looking at like what would you need to do to get 80 milligrams. Uh, so in 6 servings of fruits and vegetables shown here, you actually get 250% of that DRI. You get 180 milligrams of vitamin C. Now, this is going to change depending on what fruits and vegetables you choose to eat. I just picked 6 and looked up the vitamin C content. So there's a range that you could get. But my point is that if you're eating a healthy diet, if you're following the recommendations for fruit and vegetable intake, you're already getting much more than 80 milligrams of vitamin C through your diet alone. And that to me illustrates an important point, which is that if we're eating a healthy diet, we get additional amounts of these nutrients above and beyond 100% DRI. And that's associated with additional health benefits many times. So with vitamin C, we see there's extra research showing higher amounts may provide immune health benefits and skin health benefits and eye health benefits. And so as long as we're not going too high, and in this case, too high is I think the upper limit is set at either 1,000 milligrams or 2,000 milligrams, somewhere in there. So it's much, much higher. As long as you don't go too high, you can still get a lot of added value here. So, which nutrients are beneficial at these higher amounts? I mentioned not every nutrient needs to be at higher levels. Iodine's a great example. 100% DRI of iodine, you're good. You don't really need more than that. There's no added value. But for B vitamins, for vitamin D, for vitamin E, even some minerals like selenium, chromium, molybdenum, these all have additional benefits if you get, a little bit extra. So, so the net takeaway I want you to get from this is that if you're eating a healthy diet rich in fruits and vegetables, you're going to be getting lots of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients that supports a lot of health functions throughout the body. So, we saw in that one study that consistent use over 2 years helps support cognitive function. We see benefits in research with heart and blood, with metabolism, vitamin K, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium all support bone maintenance in the long run. Uh, we get thyroid function benefits from iodine and selenium. We get vision benefits from vitamins A and C and zinc. Um, we get immune function benefits from vitamin C and zinc as well, skin maintenance, antioxidant defenses. And those antioxidant benefits come not just from vitamins and minerals, but also from phytonutrients found in those plants. And that's what we're going to talk about more next, is these phytonutrients and carotenoids. So before I dive in to phytonutrients and carotenoids in a little bit more detail, I want to take a minute to explain what an antioxidant is and why it's important. And this might be familiar for some of you, but it's always a good refresher. So every day we go throughout our lives, we're exposed to oxidative stress. And oxidative stress can come from a lot of sources. It can come from pollution, from smoking, from just internal stress that we carry from our environment. Every time we go outside and the sun is shining, that is great, but it also is a source of oxidative stress. Uh, Even just living our daily lives, the processes our cells go through on a daily basis to keep us alive does generate some oxidative stress. So we can't avoid all of it. We certainly can try and limit some of these sources. Smoking's a great example of one that we have a little bit more control over. But when we're exposed to this oxidative stress, it causes cellular damage in our bodies. It causes free radicals, which are very unstable molecules that then damage our cells. So, oxidative stress, generally speaking, is unavoidable to some extent, but it's also part of life. Luckily, nature has a very cool solution, and that is antioxidants. So antioxidants are essentially there to neutralize that oxidative stress. They neutralize that free radical damage. And so the goal then is to balance our oxidative stress and our antioxidant intake. We want to make sure we have enough antioxidants in our body to counteract whatever oxidative stress is happening. So, a great example of this in real life that you may have seen before is if you cut an apple in half and you leave it on the counter, it's exposed to oxygen. And that oxygen is going to oxidize the apple and it turns brown. So, this is an example of oxidative stress in action. Now, if you take that apple and you cut it in half and you put lemon juice on it, the lemon juice is a source of antioxidants, and so it protects that apple from the oxidative stress, right? And if it's balanced, it'll keep that apple from browning. Although if you leave it on the counter long enough, the antioxidants will start to get used up, and you might start to see a little bit of browning. That's why the balance is important, right? So this is a great example of illustrating this concept of oxidative stress in real life. It feels really abstract, but it's actually something you can see on it, whenever you start cutting that fruit. Uh, the same thing is true with metal rusting over time. That's another source of or example of oxidation happening or oxidative stress. Um, but I like the apple example because it's another um, living thing, right? Uh, because it's a plant. So, okay, so in plants, they're exposed to a lot of different stressors as they're growing. Sorry, let me back up. The question then is, so we get a lot of antioxidants from plants, and why do those plants have antioxidants to begin with? And the reason has to do with how they're grown. So when plants are grown, of course, they're exposed to UV light. The sun causes them to helps them grow, but it also causes oxidative stress. They're exposed to temperature fluctuations and drought. Maybe they get not enough water some days and too much other days. Maybe they're exposed to pollutants in the air or soil. All of these sources, environmental stressors, cause oxidative stress in the plant. And the cool thing about plants is their natural response to that is to produce antioxidants. So this is why we eat a lot of plants, and this is why eating plants provides us with so many antioxidants because they produce them in response to those environmental stressors. And you get different kinds from different colors of fruits and vegetables. So anthocyanins are one kind that we get from berries usually, especially those dark red, purple, blue berries, black currants, things like that. Great source of anthocyanins. You don't really get them in orange or yellow foods, though. Red or orange and yellow foods tend to be higher in carotenoids. Um, and then we get flavonoids and polyphenols, and there's a ton of different kinds of antioxidants beyond that that come in a wide range of colors. But generally speaking, you get different kinds of antioxidants with different colors of food. So here are some great examples from across the rainbow. In red foods, you might find resveratrol. This is found in red grapes and red wine. You might find lycopene, which is in tomatoes and watermelon. You might get astaxanthin, which is in salmon. That's what makes it pink. Um, if you look at orange foods, alpha and beta carotene tend to be higher in orange foods like carrots and pumpkin and sweet potatoes. Curcumin is found in turmeric, which is bright orange. In yellow foods, you tend to get lutein. This is a little deceptive. You also get lutein in leafy green vegetables, but citrus bioflavonoids are also found in citrus fruits, which are yellow or orange. Um, in green foods, you get things like hydroxytyrosol. This is found in olive fruit. You get sulforaphane from broccoli or other brassica vegetables. You get catechins or EGCG from green tea. And then I mentioned this already, but in all of those blue and purple berries, you get anthocyanins and flavonoids and polyphenols. Uh, and then I sort of have a catch-all category of everything that doesn't fall into the normal color range. You get quercetin from onions, you get gingerols from ginger root, isocoumarins from mushrooms. So this is by no means comprehensive, but it's an illustration of all of the different kinds of compounds that you can get from eating this broad range of different plants. So I want to focus on one category of antioxidants in particular, and that's carotenoids. Now, carotenoids are particularly important as an antioxidant because they have some pretty unique characteristics. So, first of all, they're fat soluble. Now, that means that they're best absorbed when you take it with fat, but it also means that they can stick around in your body for a long time. They end up getting stored in the back of your eye, in the macula, to help protect against light that's coming in through your eye. They get stored in your skin to help protect your skin. They get stored in lots of other tissues where fat is present. Um, but that means that they're around, right? They're around and available to help protect your body from oxidative stress whenever you need it, if you're getting enough in your diet. Um, they also have a really unique chemical structure. So I have four different examples of carotenoids up here: beta carotene, lutein, lycopene, zeaxanthin. And you might notice they all have something in common. Um, it's okay if you don't know a lot about chemical structures or chemistry. They basically all have this chemical backbone that is alternating double bond, single bond carbon chain. That's what these lines represent. Um, Now, what that means is that that particular configuration means that they're able to neutralize a lot of free radicals, a lot of oxidative stress, but also means they react a very specific way to light. And we can measure them with certain light-based technologies because of this predictable response. And so, because they stick around in your body and they're around, they're and in the skin, you're able, and because of that chemical structure, we're able to measure them as an indicator of overall fruit and vegetable intake and an indicator of overall antioxidant status. Uh, they've also have the added benefit of being studied for a lot of different health benefits in the body, like that fourth study I mentioned earlier. So everything from eye health to cardiovascular to metabolic health, all across throughout your body. Okay, I just want to wrap up here with one last slide, really summarizing the benefits that phytonutrients can have in our bodies. So, phytonutrients, I've focused mainly on their antioxidant benefits, but that's really not all they do. They work in a lot of different ways in our body. In addition to antioxidant protection, they're also going to help with cellular protection and metabolic support, cell signaling. I mentioned lutein in the macula helps to filter blue light to help protect our eyes. So they have light filtering properties. They help support immunity and microbiome. In fact, a lot of those polyphenols and flavonoids that we get from fruits and vegetables can't get absorbed in our gut, but they act as a food source for our microbiome. And so the microbiome will break them down, and then we absorb the metabolites. And the metabolites are what provide the health benefits in our body, but they also support the microbiome along the way. Um, so Point being, they work through lots of different mechanisms of action, but the overall goal is the same. No matter how they're working in our body, these phytonutrients and carotenoids are supporting health and wellness, and they complement all of the health benefits that vitamins and minerals provide in the same area, right? So by getting a whole range of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, we can actually provide really comprehensive support for our health and wellness. So, with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn this time back over to Philippine.
So much, Rebecca. It was super interesting. We had a lot of scientific insight, and I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I did. Now we will have a short break. So I'm going to launch a 15-minute countdown. So keep Zoom open, grab a drink, and see you in 15 minutes for the project section part.